If I pitched you an idea of a game where you get to take essentially a pottery class, where you get to make a pot, a clay pot, and then you anthropomorphize that pot and make it move and have special moves, and you get to attack other pots, and you have to try to quench a kiln with water using the pots that you can attack other pots with. Would you think that I'd be crazy in pitching that idea? Well, of course, give it up to Double Fine for having the wild and wacky and abstract idea of making a game called Kiln that does exactly that. But the question still remains, will this pottery party brawler be accessible? Let's find out. I'm Steve Saylor, I'm blind, and if you're wondering how I can be able to play video games if I'm blind and what I can see when I'm playing video games if I'm blind, take a look at the video here or click the link in the description down below. Also, make sure to subscribe to be able to get more of these videos so I can be able to keep doing more reviews of games like Kiln. So, Kiln. It's the second game that we've actually reviewed from Double Fine just in the past couple months. We started with Keeper this year, and now a few months later, we have Kiln, which was a surprise announcement that Double Fine had at the Xbox Developer Direct earlier this year in January, and the game is now out, and it is exactly as I described at the beginning. You are a pot that you actually technically make and mold the pot like you would in a pottery set like class or like I don't know, art, like studio, what have you, and then you get to take that pot, and depending on the shape of that pot, it actually will give you a special ability, and you can actually be able to inhabit that pot as a spirit, and you get to like have legs and arms and a face, and then you get to be brought into an arena where you're attacking other pots, but the idea is you're trying to be able to fill your pot with water so you can go to the other team's a kiln, which is where you would normally fire a pot, which is how you'd be able to dry out the clay and the paint so that it gets solidifies the actual pot itself. But you have to quench their kiln with water, and whoever can quench their kiln with water 3 times, you win. And that's basically the premise of the game. It's a multiplayer, as they said, pottery party brawler. And I love Double Fine for being able to make a game like this. They developed this actually part of their internal game jam that they do every year, where they stop doing whatever they're doing for 2 weeks. They call it, I think it's a game jam fortnight or something like that. And they basically just try to be able to come up with an idea for a game. And if they have an idea for a game that actually thinks that people get excited about at the studio, they'll make it. And that's how Kiln basically came about. And what I like about this game is that it is a lot of fun. Being able to not only make a pot and be creative that way with the paint and the size of the pot and and using the different tools that you normally would if you were making a pot in person or in real life, you get to do that, and then based on that pot, it basically gives you those special abilities to go into an arena brawler that you get to basically have fun destroying other pots or quenching their kilns first, and it's basically a multiplayer game where you track your kills, you track your assists, and also how many times you kill. It really is a fun, different take on a multiplayer game that I actually had a blast playing. I played this at PAX East for the first time this year, and I immediately was like, I need to be able to play this, and I was like, I could not wait for this game to come out. And now that it's out, I've been having fun playing this. I played this on stream, I played this on my own. I've just been legitimately having a blast. Now, is it because it's accessible? Yes and no. I will say that it does not have as much accessibility in Kiln as Double Fine did in Keeper. Now, there's potentially a lot of reasons for that, but the reason I think is because that these games were being built at the same time. So a lot of the accessibility that was in Keeper probably was not developed in the same way, or ability to be able to develop in the same way as they did in Kiln. You can definitely see that in the high contrast mode that they have in the game, which is kind of like it's to me, it's somewhat standout feature, at least in regards to, or at least the most visual feature that that is in the game, because you can see the difference in Keeper having a lot more options and customizability for that high contrast mode, but in, say, Kiln, there's really not a lot of customization at all. It's there, and that's great, but there's not a lot of customization at all. So that's kind of like, that's where I say like yes and no. There are some accessibility that is in Kiln that's similar to Keeper, but not everything is equal in that sense. And it's because I think they were both developed at the same time. But before I get into like kind of the more specifics and the highlights, let's actually go over their accessibility options and what features they have. So the cool thing is actually they do have an accessibility page on their website where you can be able to go and take a look and see exactly what accessibility the game has, which is awesome. They haven't really done a lot of this, so I'm glad that they actually have a page for this. This is very rare in the industry, by the way, to have an accessibility page of what is available. So kudos to Double Fine for putting this out. So they got a few different features, kind of with specific kind of tags, if you will. So they have auditory features. They have multiple volume controls, surround sound, and mono sound. They have input. They're playable with buttons only, single stick gameplay, playable without motion controls, playable without touch controls. They have gameplay, they have on-demand tutorials, and then visual features, color alternatives, and a camera comfort. Those are the general tags that you see on Steam or any storefront. Those are the tags that they have within these features. But the more specifics, here is what the accessibility menu is like. So you got your text weight. You can be able to change the already large font, to be honest, to even make it more bolder or like more like higher contrast. And then you can also adjust the subtitles. You can see the difference between here with this is more of this extra bold and medium size, whereas if you look at this is a larger side, but as a regular text. So you can kind of see the differences that they have there, which is really great. And then this is what the high contrast mode essentially is. So you have your essential controls for your making your pot. You have the hands essentially, or your cursor essentially in this is high contrast. And then also here's what your high contrast will look like in the pot. It does change color when you're in an arena, and I'll show that in a minute. But essentially it's that's a high contrast. This is what the only thing I wish that I'll say that when I get to the high contrast part, I do have some thoughts on that that I'll get into. They have color vision compensation, which are filters. So yes, it's not the most ideal way to do color blindness, but they do have colorblind filters and also intensity for those filters. Then they have some audio where you can be able to adjust volumes and also change to mono sound, which is great for accessibility, by the way. If you don't know, mono audio, a lot of times when stereo audio, sometimes when deaf and hard of hearing, you can hear better in one ear than you can in the other, and sometimes that stereo sound, like some things can be lost. So by putting audio into mono, it basically means that both channels will have the same amount of audio. So that way, if you can hear them out of one ear or better out of the other, then you can be able to get the same audio information, which is really great. The only thing you don't get is obviously the stereo, where whether an enemy or an opponent is on your right or on your left or what have you. And then for gameplay, they have a few other things. You can be able to turn on moderated pots mode, so you don't get any phallic or any sort of weird, or not weird, but like any not safe for work type pots. You can turn those on. You can adjust the field of view, camera distance. You can turn have the auto camera, which basically will have the camera follow your pot from behind the pot. And you can be able to have the delay for how, like, when it snaps back to that camera view, and even the speed for that. So it does kind of so even if you adjust the camera, it'll automatically snap back to the behind your pot if you have this turned on. And then you can remap the controls which is great. You can even have multiple actions per button. And then basically there's all the graphic settings for that. So I actually do like the fact that they do include a lot of, like, this page and these accessibility options. And for the most part, this game is okay for accessibility. It's not It's not great. There are a lot of things missing. Say, for instance, again, there is no screen reader for totally blind players, as what Keeper has. There is no audio cues for. There's not a lot of audio cues for blind players to be able to when you're in the arena, and also when you're making your pot. There are sound effects and audio cues, but nothing in regards to like letting you know what kind of shape that you're creating your pot to be. And because there's no screen reader, you can't tell what the special ability is that will change based on what type of pot or type of pot size and shape will like you set it to be. So if it had that, then that would really help sort of like determining what type of pot you want to be able to create. But unfortunately, because there's no screen reader, you can't do that. And because there's also no audio cues, they're like at least as many to be able to make the game playable for totally blind players. Unfortunately, this game will be a pass for that, or you might be able to play it with sighted assistance potentially. But let's actually, jump into the gameplay, and I can actually be able to even show you a little bit about this. So this is the pot shaping area, where I will say the UI is great. It's large, it's high contrast. There are times where the text can kind of blend into the environment a little bit, but for the most part, I really love this interface. You can tell that they actually went in and made a default font size that was large, and they kind of kept it to that. And this is where you can be able to like adjust your pot, and you can be able to kind of make the size. I'll actually move over to the left side, and so you can see what depending on what type of pot you create, you can see that there is a bit different ability that is creating, and then also what type of health or how much water that pot can be able to carry as well, which is really cool. And it's a great, honestly, it's a really, really cool interface, to be honest. I really do like that. But let's jump into the actual fight, like actual arena combat, if you will. If I kind of, you can customize your pot. You can paint it. You can add flair to it. You can add a spout. You can add a handle. You can really go nuts and completely customize it. This was the job that I did for one of my pots as a teapot kind of thing. So I like that. But let's jump into the game itself. So you can see that basically you and your teammates are highlighted in green, and because I have high contrast on, and your enemies are in pink. You do not have the ability to be able to customize those colors. So while yes, the green definitely does help to let you know which area that you're in, and also your other teammates, but I wish you can be able to go in and actually customize those colors. I wish that, so I do hope that Double Fine actually goes in and actually gives more adjustments to this, as they seem to want to be able to make this more of a game that they will update over time. I hope that high contrast mode gets a few additional updates. It does work for me for somewhat, and the fact that basically the enemies are in pink makes it a little bit easier for me to see. But I do wish you'd be able to customize at least a little bit of this, so that I can be able to make it more comfortable for me. So whenever you're actually in a map, my strategy was essentially to just defend the kiln, because that worked best for me as far as accessibility. I did not know where the water was. That didn't really have a huge amount of contrast. I can kind of see where there were water areas, and the good thing is that when you walk over water, it will just automatically pick up and be deposited into your pot, so you don't have to hit a button to do that, which is a great game design that does make it accessible. And again, there are sound effects that do help, and there are, with the special abilities, they do have a somewhat contrasted like area of effect that where you're going to be able to hit. There are some interesting game design elements that do make this game accessible. But I will say that it is more on a basic level, and hopefully that will add more accessibility. So it's a good start. I just hope that they can be able to create more accessibility as they go. And yeah, honestly, I had a blast just defending. I actually got really good at being able to defend. I was streaming this, and I think the most amount of kills I had in one match was like 12. And I normally don't do that in any multiplayer game where it tracks kills and your deaths. So the fact that I was able to pick up this game and actually do pretty well as a defender, I was pretty happy about that. And that's just the way I was able to adapt to the game until I can get more comfortable with how the game plays. Then I can be able to go and actually be able to be on offense instead of just defense. So overall, this game is a ton of fun. I do recommend it if you can be able to play it with the accessibility that is there. But if there is any specific accessibility that you need that you did not see or I did not discuss, more than likely this game may not be accessible for you. Again, I hope that Double Fine will continue to support this and add more accessibility as the game develops over time. But for now, it is still a relatively okay accessible game. I think I will give this, if I had to review it at this moment, I would probably give it a 2.5, close to a 3 out of 5 for accessibility. Does a great job, but wish there was more. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you like this video or like more of my reviews, make sure to hit the like button and also hit the subscribe button so you can see more reviews in the future. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.